What's going on? Boys, thanks to our patrons and Fiverr customers, subscribe to our Patreon free for behind the scenes stuff. Arm yourselves, typology stuff. I think this will be a relatively quick one because it's not comprehensive, and the stuff we are talking about, I don't know why it is or what it is. Now, in my experience in typology discourse, there is this push for NI types to act like NI is a completely rational, in the explainable sense, function. And to an extent, they're right. There is a rational explanation for the way NI carries out its tasks generally, common to all NI types. And you can even take that further and get specific because you're aware each type has its own peculiarities or abilities that definitely do line up with their conscious functions, but not in any way that's easy to explain. Like the INFJ eyes thing. You know that's an INFJ characteristic. You know that has something to do with their functions, but you can't connect the outcome with the reasons you know are causing that outcome. But even those you recognize to be explainable. But then you take another step into what I'm beginning to call deep intuition. This is where there is mystical shit going on, or what appears to be mystical shit. But even within these, there could be rational explanations. And what I'm about to describe doesn't connect with NI. I think this is more of an NE thing, but it demonstrates my point. Why are tarot readings accurate? How can they be accurate? And I mean accurate outside the general connection ability tarot has. As in, the Fool, anybody will relate with the Fool at some point. Everyone has needed, or probably does need right now, everybody, to learn a lesson the hard way. There is an element of this in tarot cards that make them work generally. That's the way they're designed. But I'm talking about the specific shit. The eerie shit. I love tarot, but if you love, it's the Kreia thing. If you love something, you need to be willing to betray it, or in this case, be willing to steelman it. I think there is a potential, rational, comprehensible to us explanation for how these sharp tarot readings occur, and it's deep intuition related to any, or any's form of this. Because that's another thing, you know when you're doing an accurate reading. Even if it's cold on somebody with no context, you know when the cards you're pulling or the information, the interpretation you're providing is accurate. And to me, that makes me think this is a rational thing, or could be. I think what could be happening is the cards act as a tool, or like in Dark Souls, a catalyst or a wand or something, for your unconscious intuition to speak. You aren't pulling information out of the immaterium. Instead, the cards allow you to describe someone or predict events using information your unconscious intuition, your deep intuition has acquired, but for whatever reason won't make itself conscious. The cards allow you to access information you have that you don't know you have. Which, weird, but completely rational. As in this, you don't know how it makes sense, but you know this makes sense, even if it appears eerie. Many sharper functions of NI operate at a similar level, I think. Eerie, borderline supernatural, but there is still a way for you to explain this rationally, or at least to have a rational theory. Now, the topic of this video is about when you take another step to go further beyond into a realm that is completely unexplainable, at least to me, at least in any even potentially rational way. And after recording a little bit after this, we're deleting all that, we're coming back here. There's really only one truly, to my eyes, supernatural one. So we'll go over some of the minor mind powers, the ones you actually could probably still, if you believe in the deep intuition thing, describe using deep intuition alone. And then we'll get into the one true, strange, confounding, unexplainable one. And I'll put an image on screen when we reach that point if you want to skip to it. But for right now, let's start with some of the other ones. And we'll begin with ENTJs, my beloveds. ENTJs are paranoid people. And I mean irrationally paranoid, or what appears to be irrationally paranoid. They usually keep it under wraps, don't tell people about it because they're aware of how they sound. But I've found ENTJs' threat detectors operate on a weird level. Most of the time, it's idle paranoia. Maybe they're seeing parallel or feeling parallel universes or something. But I say that because there have been a number of times in my life in which an ENTJ close to me will have a bad feeling about something, and it's not worth fighting them on that, even though it is usually paranoia. And then later you find out something did happen. Maybe it's not what they thought it was, but their threat instinct was correct. And they might be willing to tell you what they think is going to happen. They don't always, but I'm beginning to think whenever these threat instincts fire off, they get a clear image of something specific happening. And to them, it's realer than real, even though there is no evidence suggesting this would happen, or why this would happen. So consider keeping an ENTJ around as a psychic smoke alarm. The next one is a big seems to be, because I haven't studied this type thoroughly, but it's a pattern I think is there. ESFPs take a lot of risks. It's one of the things that makes them competitive with ENTJs at their own game. And it seems like ESFPs take the consequences, or get hit with consequences of the risks they take, but it never seems to be as severe as it should be. As in, an ESFP will get the vibe, it's time to punch a cop, and they'll do it, and instead of going to prison for 15 years minimum, they'll lose a shoe they like while they're running. And they'll do that, or something to that caliber effect, over and over and over again. And of course, some will get hit, but if someone else tried to do that, they would get the maximum consequences immediately. And ESFPs seem very good at... It's not dodging consequences, I think. What I'm talking about with their NI mind powers is knowing where consequences are out in the world like landmines. They already know where they are. Meaning, when an ESFP takes what appears to be a great risk, to them, it's not really a great risk. And I don't know if they're aware of this consciously, but they seem to know what they can get away with. They're good at sniffing out return on investment. And once again, this is one you could describe with deep intuition. That's probably what it is. But it doesn't make sense to me how they know, especially considering NI is so low in their stack, even if there is this deep intuition thing operating in the background. Maybe it's the merits of dominant SE? I don't know. Now, one of the more mystical ones still could be explained with deep intuition, but the way they do it, it doesn't seem to operate that way. We're, of course, talking about ISTPs and their flashes of insight, but specifically related to people. It's probably a beta quadrant thing. ISTPs, along with the NFJs and ESTPs, they're massive betas. Generally speaking, given some time, an ISTP will know what someone will do and why they'll do it with nothing but a hunch, and they'll probably be right. Once again, you can explain this with deep intuition, but with ISTPs, well, no, because with ENTJs, what we described, that happens in flashes. With ESFPs, I'm assuming it happens in flashes. Maybe there's never any flash, it's just a constant vibe of criminality or otherwise risky enterprises. Maybe with ISTPs, it feels more mystical, or it feels more like a true flash of insight, because they don't, unlike the other types with ENTJs, an ENTJ will tell you or act it out when they're feeling paranoid. An ISTP won't say shit even when they feel confident they know something. So when they finally do tell you something, and they're right about it, it has a mystical flavor to it. And I don't know why ISTPs are so shy or careful about describing or sharing their intuitions. INFJs, and maybe ENFJs too, have that thing about not wanting to share their ideas or their process of idea building until they're sure, until they have a fully completed, tested, vetted idea. Maybe ISTPs do something similar, except instead of with their ideas, it's with their intuitions. Anyway, an ISTP, if you're close to them, will come up to you out of nowhere and say, "Hey, you know that cashier at that gas station? I think he's going to go postal in a few days. Don't go around there." You ask why, they say, "I don't know." Then they start talking about this intuition the way an INTP gives life advice. "Well, I don't know, that's just me, you do whatever you want." And then there's a tragic event a few days later. Or worse, when these sons of bitches do this, you're probably aware, if you've been around an ISTP for a while, you're probably aware that they have these capabilities, and I think they have them often. They just don't talk about them often unless it's severe. So when you get caught up in and affected by other people's events, and then they come to you later and tell you they knew that was going to happen, that's annoying. Because I believe you. I believe you knew that was going to happen, and I wish you would have told me. ISTPs are very good at sniffing people out, and the reason I say this is, at least in this scale of mysticism, it's between deep intuition and the supernatural, is yes, an ISTP can sniff somebody out in a way that would seem very deep intuition-y, as in observing them, talking to them, and then they know them. It seems like they have these moments in which they just get a flash based on nothing. I'm sure it's not based on nothing, but there's a level of reaching into the ether involved, and ISTPs can reach pretty far sometimes. Now we get into the supernatural stuff. It's clever, right? This is the one I have no rational explanation for. And it's also the one I'm most familiar with outside the ENTJ thing. And I was considering making a video about this phenomenon by itself, maybe an FE bonds thing, psychic bonds, but I haven't investigated it thoroughly enough to say for certain it's an FE thing, but I was familiar with NI weirdness, so we've smuggled the key topic into this video. INFJ telepathy slash mind reading slash scrying. It's interesting because it seems like every INFJ is capable of this, but it's most intense when your connection with the INFJ is intense. Maybe they're doing it all the time, but it doesn't matter, so you don't know about it, or you don't notice it. But INFJs can watch you without seeing you. This is one of the ones I would, if we ever reached a point we had an entire typology research institute, this would be high priority study, traditionally study. I don't know how to describe how it feels from their point of view or when they're doing it, but they have an idea of where you are, they have an idea of what you're doing, they also have an idea of how you're feeling, and it's interesting because it seems like they can transmit how they're feeling to you in some cases, and it's alien. As in, let's say you have an irregular sleep schedule. You wake up at an unspecified time, and then 2 minutes later you get a text from an INFJ you are psychically bonded to, or who is scrying you. They don't know you just woke up, they just had a strong feeling, but you did just wake up. Or you're having a bad day, and you're having a particularly bad moment, and then at that moment, they contact you and are supportive. How did they know? You don't know. They don't know, maybe, but they know. And this also extends to when you're avoiding them, but what is it? Who said it? I think it came up. No, it was Patrice who said it. Trust is routine. Within your routine, this is normally not a time you would have contact with them. So, although you are avoiding them, they have no reason, according to the schedule you haven't broken, the trust you haven't broken, that you would be avoiding them, but somehow they know and they're pissed about it. And that's all already odd, but what takes it up a notch is it's accurate. And not in the ENTJ way. An ENTJ's threat detection feels like a broken clock is right a few times per day. And when it's right, it's very right, eerily right, but there are lots of misfirings and misses. Whereas INFJs, at least in my experience, don't miss. And now that I'm talking about it, because they have that weird vampiric aspect, I'm wondering if they need consent for this to work. As in, but you don't give consent in the way you think you give consent. If they are a key action item in your life, whether that's positive or negative, you are aware of them, they are absorbing some degree of your attention, that's when they seem most likely to do it, most able to do it. And also, I'm wondering if it scales with attention. As in, if you're giving them high attention and they're giving you high attention, it's most accurate. And as we're talking about all this, I think there's a logic to the way this works. I think this is a system. I think it's an ability. But the reason I say it's irrational is maybe there is a rationality to it, but we haven't gotten there yet as a species. We have that ability, they have that ability. I mean, we have tons of abilities we can't explain rationally or refuse to accept are there. But with INFJs, it's clear, it's accurate, it's consistent, and there appears to be a method by which it operates that you can learn. You don't know why this works, but you know how it works. It's really strange. In my typological experience, there isn't an equivalent in another type or an analog in another type that operates this strangely and this consistently between individuals of this type, at least that I'm aware of at the moment. my nose tells me there are others. And you see strange shit in types all the time. But for me, so far, a pattern in other types, at least to this level, hasn't emerged yet. And the reason this is so interesting to me, outside, the fact something really fucky wucky is going on here, is it makes me wonder about other phenomena. As in, is the popular conception of astral projection based in a phenomenon located in INFJs? A natural capability of one sort of person grows around it an entire mythology of conspiracies and history and practice that grows away from what originated it. I don't know, but I wanted to talk about it. And I don't normally ask for comments, but if you're an INFJ who is down with the channel, if you could speak to this, I would appreciate it. What is it? How does it work for you? Does it change as you age, or are there other conditions that affect it? Remember, if you write a really long comment, you may want to save it, copy it, and save it somewhere in case YouTube auto mods it. And then other NI types, if you have any of these, or even are aware of any of these potential supernatural patterns, let me know. Like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you haven't.